watching up-to-the-minute SABC News International.
Welcome back. Now, the Nelson Mandela Foundation's Memory Program and the South African History Archive, SAR, are convening a dialogue forum on the theme Reconciliation and the Work of Memory in Post-Apartheid South Africa. The purpose of the dialogue, which is organized in partnership with the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation, is to determine the effectiveness of memory in the post-apartheid era in South Africa. The country received international praise for the way it dealt with the atrocities of apartheid. Prominent scholars and human rights activists will challenge South Africa's exemplary status in this regard at the two-day forum, which is starting today. Now, to discuss this, we are now joined in the studio by Sello Hatang and Shadrack Katu, and they are both from the Nelson Mandela Foundation. It's a very good morning to you, gentlemen, and welcome to 180 Degrees. If I can start with you, Sello, can you just take us through the themes here? I understand there will be justice, race, rights and power that will be discussed in this seminar. Just what exactly will you be touching on?
We will be looking back at 10 years ago when the report of the TRC was handed over to government and to South Africa, shared with the world, to say how have we moved in terms of the use or abuse of power, or how we can safeguard that we do not go that route of the use or abuse of power. The issue of race, have we moved in terms of race relations, improving race relations? And there are some incidents in South Africa that suggest contrary. The issue of justice, the dispensement of justice. Have we achieved a lot in terms of movement from where we were? And in fact, in terms of justice, you see how many still argue that we have not moved much, because they still treat the justice system with suspicion because of the past that we come from. And then the issue of rights, same. The powerful tend to be the one who can exercise and access rights more than those who are not as powerful. So the theme of power will inform all four. To say how we can learn from where we come from and make sure that we do not.
But still with you, Sello, just then how relevant will all these themes, not just in highlighting, the injustices of the past, but more in terms of uniting a once divided nation?
I suppose the uniting theme or threat that goes across all four discussion points will be about how do we discuss or argue about a better future. Not to argue about the past that we've had, but to say, are we on the right road? Are we being praised by the world for the process that we went through justifiably? Or are there things that we can still do to ensure that that unity that we wanted to achieve 10 years ago and more is still alive? The dream is still alive. So you should remember that it's a promise that we've had, that there's a land that we still have to land on, which will have this reconciliation that unites everybody behind one banner. But it is to say, how far are we? We reevaluate ourselves.
If I can come to Shadrack then, do you think that the experiences of reconciliation that South Africa has gone through up to this stage can indeed be exported to other African countries or other nations that are emerging from conflict, or is this purely a South African experience?
I think there are a couple of things that are important to note. One, and just to recap and continue on with what Sello has said, is that not only will there be South Africans in the dialogue forum, but there'll also be Kenyans and Germans.
Oh, I see.
And what we're doing is, while we're looking at the history of South Africa and where South Africa is at the moment, we're also bringing in experiences from other countries. Whether we can export these things suggests, or it's important to note that we cannot always export everything.
True.
Among the things that we know is that Africa is not one country. There are different countries, they all experience different things. The tensions, for example, that we have we have had in Zimbabwe are very different from the ones in Madagascar. And you cannot then say what we do in Zimbabwe, we must also do in Madagascar. The religious tensions that we've had in a place like Nigeria are very different from the ones we have in Tanzania. And Zanzibar and so on. So it's important to make sure that we don't always export everything. We learn from what we can learn in each of these countries and take the countries forward.
And I just want to take that debate further with the internal processes within countries. What is it that will need to be done internally so that a whole nation can really embrace national reconciliation?
There are a number of things that need to happen. And for me, the key one is to strengthen the institutions of democracy. One would be electoral processes. Those have to be strengthened. We saw beginning of last year the tensions that came through in Kenya around the electoral processes. Ghana went through the same sort of path, but they managed to deal with that process very well. So Ghana is a very good example. Kenya is not. We are seeing in other places where we need to strengthen civil society, for example. In many countries, there's an adversarial relationship between government and civil society. There shouldn't be one. We should all be working together towards an equitable future.
Well, we are quickly running out of time. I just want to come to Silo, just to find out whether South Africa has learned anything from the truth and reconciliation processes that were undertaken years ago.
I think there are many lessons that we've learned. Amongst those, how we learned about what passed, the atrocities, the level of atrocities that we've had. But I think we could have done more in terms of ensuring that the future that we're thinking about is one that can take us somewhere as a nation. If you take race relations, for example, I think we didn't delve into how much damage the apartheid system dealt in terms of the blow that it did to the oppressed. So there are many things that, many areas that this seminar will try and again delve into to see where have we been, where were we, and where are we going?
Okay, Silo, I'm afraid there are so many things I would have loved to talk to you about, but unfortunately we've run out of time. But both, thank you so much for joining us. Well, that was Silo Hatang and Shadrack Katu, both from the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Don't go away. More is coming after this short break.
This is African Views.
What caused the current upsurgency? What should the position of Africa be? What happened that we now all of a sudden see these images that we are getting?
We ask the questions. We seek the answers. We give you an African perspective.
It is estimated that 90% of all malaria deaths occur in sub-Saharan Africa and that 1 in 5 childhood deaths are caused by this sickness. What happened?
It's a big issue.
It's out of control. How bad is the situation?
We focus on Africa and the plight of its people. We put African leaders under the spotlight.
Do you think that this is a real step?
Questions are now being asked whether this marriage is going to last.
Is this marriage that Lord is talking about actually taking place?
Get a better perspective on Africa. African Views, Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. on SABC News International.